just getting into it. Hey, we're back. Welcome. Welcome to Kitchen Table for 7
Kitchen,
Billion at Kitchen on Fire. I don't know what the name of this show is.
oh man.
It's the Today Show. Welcome to the Today Show. Or is this Good
Welcome to
Morning
the.
America? It's more like
How
Good
about
Afternoon
how
America.
about welcome to the Monday show? Let's stick it to that.
Welcome to the Monkey House, as Kurt Vonnegut said. Hey, I want to show you my new prep knife. It's kind of loud and
Ah,
messy, but man, it cuts vegetables fast. You should try it.
Jesus, and that's the kids version, right? Do you have
Yeah,
them? Do you have
that's just for the little kids. I have a bigger one for me because it'd
Yeah,
be
no, that's great.
dangerous to give them a big one. So,
I use one. Sorry,
yeah,
go. I use one of those. How do you call this?
a saw.
But there's a name, no? I
Uh,
used one, and I almost killed myself with that. So it was not
oh,
fun.
a chainsaw. Yeah,
This
if I'm
thing.
cutting
So I
something
was.
really hard, like a squash or like a summer squash or winter squash, then I use a chainsaw. Goes right
Yeah,
through an
that
acorn
was.
squash.
You're right. It works way better.
Yeah. So we have all kinds of stuff to
Cool.
talk about today.
Finally.
Yeah. A very interested student once asked, "What's the deal with cast iron cookware? Why is it good to cook with? How does it differ from other kinds of cookware?" Well, that question's just so stupid, I'm not even going to answer it. What do you think? No, no, I'm kidding. It's not a stupid question.
No.
I love
Yes,
cast iron. I don't use it
I love
exclusively,
Castagne.
but I like it a lot for certain
I like
things.
it a lot also. Castagne is a great way to cook stuff. I would not suggest you do that every day, just because you're still leaching some iron, and people are always worrying about not eating enough iron. I think they need to eat more meat. That's all, because the iron is vegetables is harder to grab unless you use vitamin C with it, which is another. But I think cast iron every day is not a good idea. That's me. Always again, it's an opinion, huh, people. I think I would not do that every day because of the iron that's leached out. I would be more afraid of too much iron than not enough iron. Again, that's my opinion, because too much iron will lead to an iron overload, which is basically not good. You
And you'll
see,
set off the alarms at the airport, right?
well, no, like when you look at the knife, the carbon knife, you see how they rust, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like this in the body, not the same color, but that's the idea. It's oxygen, just and the carbon and the oxygen will rust.
Right.
So a lot of iron will do that. Okay, so I know
Yeah,
it's a complicated subject. I just don't worry.
we have a lot of cast iron here at our house, and we
Yeah,
use it a lot, but certainly not every day. I mean,
yeah.
I go for a week at a time without using it, but I probably use it on average once or twice a week.
That's a
Now
carbon pan,
that is a carbon steel pan, which is
right?
different. So
It's not cast iron. This is fun. It's not expensive at all. They're fun. They're kind of messy to keep, right? You just need to keep oiling them, right?
but they're such great pans to cook with, almost anything. And you can cook meat
Yeah.
in there as well as you can cook it in a cast
Yep.
iron pan,
Yeah.
I think.
So what you
And
can
it's a
do in
lot lighter.
what
You
you
know,
can do in
I gave
what
both
you,
my stepdaughters cast iron pans, and they
oh
couldn't
great.
use them. They're just too heavy for them.
Oh
So they didn't
man.
use them very much. And even my wife, she usually calls me when she wants me to get one out. Once it's on the stove, it's fine because you're not really tossing it around like you do with like a saute pan. But she just to get it off the shelf and up on the stove, she calls me because I am muy guapo.
Oh yeah, right. Um
So
well
why is
cast
cast iron good? Why is it good to
it
cook with?
so first of all, there's few things you can't cook in there for sure. That would be tomato sauce. I would not cook a cream sauce in there, because you really that acid, so white wine sauce, all this acid, too much acid in there, it would pull too much iron in the food. That's really what it does.
Yeah.
But it's a great pan because it really distributes the heat really well.
It's a
I don't have one here.
The way it's been
What is
explained to me by eminent scientists is
By Eminem.
Eminem, the rap star, explained this to me very carefully, and I trusted. Uh, very cast iron is a very inefficient conductor of heat. In other words, like with aluminum, you heat up an aluminum pan, that heat goes through it very, very quickly.
Right, right.
It heats up very fast, it cools very fast. Cast iron takes longer to heat up, but once it does, it's very evenly distributed. It gets very, very hot and it stays hot. So
Yep.
you have to know this, because if you turn off a cast iron pot and push it aside, you have to know that that pan is still cooking as though you still have the fire on, because it's going to be
And
several minutes before it cools down enough that it's not cooking the food any longer. It's
right.
also
So
not a
basic,
great idea to leave food in cast iron. When you cook with cast iron, you want to, when it's done, you want to take it out, get it out of the pan. I usually deglaze the pan when I if I cook meat in a cast iron skillet. I usually deglaze the pan afterwards, but I do it quickly,
yeah,
and
right.
then I get it out and I take it
Do
out
it.
and I pour it over the
Try to
meat.
do it with water instead of wine. Little water. My mom used water to deglaze pans a lot. It's
Yeah.
a really good, efficient way. Just works.
It's also, just as a little tip, when you deglaze the pan, if you do it right and you really scrape the bottom of the pan and get all those little nice bits of meat off the bottom of the pan, it's a lot easier to clean afterwards, because
Now
you don't have to
you
soak
scrape,
it. And
you
I
scrape with a
scrape it with
wooden,
a wooden
wooden,
spatula.
okay, not like not as like a.
Yeah. No, 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 no. I have a
Yeah,
little beveled, but comes to
yeah,
a
yeah,
point, wooden spatula that I love. I use it for all kinds of things, but it's great for that. It's great when I'm deglazing a cast iron pan, because you can really scrape the pan without doing any
yeah.
damage. Cast iron is, as the name suggests, it's cast. So they actually pour uh, molten iron into a form and let it harden. And so it's very, very strong. It's basically raw, so it will rust unless you season it. You have to season it very carefully. Although more and more stainless steel or cast iron pans today are made pre-seasoned, so they
Yeah,
season them at the factory
right.
so that you can
So what
use
is
them
it?
right away, which is a nice, I think is a nice thing, because they're a pain to season. And then the more you use them, especially if you cook a lot of fatty foods like meat and bacon and stuff, they just get more and more and more seasoned until they are like non-stick cookware, basically.
Right. So that coating you get is very non-stick. That patina, that's
Yeah,
the oil that's burnt up.
right. So cast iron's great when you're cooking. I like it a lot for cooking meat. It's also great for doing things like I do frittatas in it, like Spanish omelets. I do.
I think it's too hot for me for frittata. I think it's too hot. So I like gentle heat on the eggs. So for the eggs, I will take a non-stick.
Yeah,
Actually,
nonstick is. I usually use nonstick when I'm cooking eggs,
I'm
except
I'm
for a
gonna show you
frittata.
I'm gonna show you the perfect frittata pan. Actually, it is
Good.
right
I'm all about perfection, as you know.
perfection. Yep. I'm show you my per perfect frittata. It's actually a I don't know how you call it. It's a called a it's a fryer. It's a frying pan.
Oh yeah, it's a straight-sided sawtooth. It's a
So this will get the perfect frittata. Beautiful, low temp at 350 in the oven, right? I just started in the pan and just finish it in the oven until it's done. This is really
nice.
nice. It's a nice
That's a
pan.
really versatile shaped pan too. You can do all kinds of things in there.
Those are frying pans. They're frying pans because you don't move them like this. It's not a saute pan. Saute
Right.
pan is, like
It's
this,
got it sloped sides so you can get that food
saute. This
falling
is a
back
frying
on itself.
pan. You don't move that. You just shake it a little bit if you want to release, but it's non-shaky. This is how you fry stuff. Has to have, right? Or
Right.
frittata or stews, whatever. You don't.
Yeah. So a lot of people talk about cast iron. They say that, oh, you
I
should
don't.
never wash a cast iron pan. I think you need to
Why?
relax on that. What I
Yeah,
do,
well,
if I've
I
got
know,
stuff
right?
stuck in the pan, like if we've cooked something that maybe cheese overflowed and there's cheese, stuck onto the pan or something, I just when I'm done sort of washing dishes, I put it in the sink and I wash some dishes over it so a little residual hot soapy water gets into the pan and I just let it soak for a few minutes. Now, I don't
Just
scrub it with soap. When I'm ready, then I kind of, again, I use the spatula and I sort of scrape it a little bit to get all the bits and pieces off. And then I dump it out. And then I take something that's not too abrasive and also not full of soap. And I rub that on the pan and just make sure I get everything off of it. And then I rinse
yeah,
it really well and dry it.
yeah.
But I get soap in it. It doesn't matter. It's not going to ruin it. You don't
You
want to
don't
leave
need soap.
food stuck to the
You
pan.
you don't need anything. You need a little brush. You need to
Yep.
go on
You
the
need hot
water,
water.
scrape, get a scrubber, get whatever's, and then go back on the fire. You need to dry that on the fire until it smokes again,
Yeah.
because otherwise it will rust.
And sometimes
So,
if I feel like I've scrubbed too hard, I just put a tiny drop of oil in the middle of the pan while it's still hot, and then I take a paper towel and I just go in concentric circles until the entire inside of the pan is kind of has a sheen to it. You don't want too much. You don't want like oily pan. You just sort of put a sheen on it. So, and then it's good to go. And it's uh, they're fabulous pans. And the other nice thing about cast iron is, generally speaking, it's really inexpensive.
yeah,
My favorite is Lodge cast iron. They
I know
they're uh,
Lodge is good, huh?
they're in
But that's
Tennessee, really nice people, and
great.
they've been making this stuff for like 150 years or something.
Did you go see them? Did you visit
I
the?
haven't been to the factory, but I've visited with the owners many times at trade shows. I got to know them quite well and used to
Wow,
talk to
nice.
them about cast iron. And boy, if you want to know anything about cast iron, you ask the folks at Lodge. They can tell
I
you
know, right?
scientifically what is
Could
going
we
on.
have them on the show? Or do you think?
Maybe, yeah, could ask
I
them.
mean,
Yeah, it's still family owned, or at least the last time I talked to them, there was still a Lodge was the head of the
because
company.
I'm we have a lot of we have a lot of guys that I've seen again. I told you that, James, last week. I went on a couple of shows and I met with a couple of people that we had on the show already. Well, Semi Freddy, of course.
And they're still speaking to us?
They're not.
They
Well,
they've
I
been
was
on the
doing the
show and
speaking.
they're still speaking to us?
I was doing the speaking, so I don't know. But no, but like the guy who was the pigs. What's his name? Um,
Oh, Alberto Solis.
Alberto Solis. I saw him. I tried his sobrasata.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, great.
Oh
Where'd you
my
see
God!
him?
I mean,
Where did you
it was
see him?
a thing we done for reboot for the drink. There
Oh,
was a kind of a something in Oakland with a bunch of people like this, and there's some tea, kombucha, the House of Kombucha. I don't know if you know, very good people also.
yeah.
Uh, so, so we have, they want to come back to the show. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Alberto
great.
was like, yeah, anytime. And then Semi Freddy, I told him that we have him on the show again. See, he wants us to go to the factory though. So I
Okay.
have to, so we could go do a visit because he wants to show me. He wants to show the factory, the semi-free factory. It's
Oh,
amazing.
that'd be
I went
really
last week.
interesting.
Wow, you should see the. Oh my God, it's crazy. All this beautiful stuff, machine and stuff. The bread coming out. It's really smells like crazy. Yeah, you
Oh,
can't
I'll
tell
bet.
when you can't tell from like, of course, from the store, right? But man, that reminded me so much of Europe when you smell all these, the bread coming out, sitting here. Then it's gonna. Oh,
All right. Well, I'll set, you know what? I'll talk to them and I'll set some of these things up for January. So I think
let's
from
do it.
now till the end of the year, we've got the
No,
holidays
but
coming up.
um,
Nobody's going
it's too much, man. It's too much. Too busy.
so, but in January, it'd be great to start getting some of these people on the show
Yeah.
again. So I'll set it up.
So,
I will make it
so
happen.
you do
So
that.
what else is there? You talked about carbon steel, which is that pan that you held up,
Carbon.
the first
Well,
pan you held up.
the
Now that's,
safest one. Yeah, the safest one are the stainless, but the. So that's the safest. Hey guys, I'm sorry. I'm preparing a class because right after the show, literally, I have a class right behind, like right there.
okay.
So I'm doing a Moroccan mescuta. It's an
So
orange cardamom saffron cake.
so we should just stay tuned after the show and we could take the class for free. Is that what you're saying?
Not this time, but next time, yeah. This time it's private. It's a private class.
Ah,
That is team building, a corporate event that we do a lot. And this one is, I forgot, a really good company. Good people have taken classes before, and now they have people all over the world. So in order to have their team together, now they just do virtual because I have a studio that's really cool. And I had one this morning. It was really cool from Canada, Toronto, Montreal. That's great.
nice.
So this is
Nice.
really a good team building, good corporate event. It's easy, and people enjoy working from home, which is a change. Like working in your own kitchen. That's really actually pretty cool.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. So let me just quickly go through these other materials. Carbon steel is basically uh, it's a high carbon steel. So carbon has been added to the iron. It's a very hard material, and it's made in sheets. And not, instead of casting it like cast iron, they're pressed. So you cut out the basic shape that you want, and then it goes into a press that's got a form that's the size that looks like the pan, and boom, it gets pressed, and then you have the pan. And then they
so
attach a handle.
it's like a die, right? It's
Right, right.
a huge machine.
So if the pan is shaped like a classic saute pan, then you've got
Right,
the inverse of that on the press, and it just goes into
right,
that and punches
right.
out the shape. And then it's
Damn.
polished and everything, and then a handle is added. So it's very simple. It's like cast iron in that it has to be seasoned because it's basically raw, so you don't it will rust. But if you take care of it, if you season it properly and you take care of it and you don't let it sit around, it'll last for the rest of your life and probably someone else's life too.
Wow.
Um,
Someone's like,
yeah, I mean, it's the kind of pan you hand down through the generations. Cast iron
yes, it's
and
true,
carbon
right?
steel, you
It's
you
true. They
hand them
did they
down
that.
generation after generation.
It's forever. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. My first cast iron pan, I bought at a flea market for a couple bucks, and it was
Right.
really
Yeah,
old. It's by a
right, right,
company that
right.
doesn't even exist
I know,
anymore.
that's crazy. That's
And
crazy.
if you looked at it, you'd swear it was new. And my wife too, her first one was a smaller one, and she bought it for like 50 cents, and it was all rusty. And so she took it home, and she and her mother just worked on it and scoured it and seasoned it, and now it's black as coal, and it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
a
right,
nonstick
right, right.
pan. It's really really great.
Wow.
Um, then stainless steel, of course, is has other alloys added to it to make it stainless. It gets, one of the things about carbon is, and you've probably heard of high carbon steel knives, which were
Yes.
the old fashioned knives in France. 7,500 years ago, every chef had a carbon steel knife, and they were great because it's a softer metal, so you could really really put an edge on it. You could really hone these things as
Right,
sharp
right,
as you
right.
wanted. You had to take good care of them. You couldn't just use them and then leave them laying there because they will rust. But
And
if you
just,
took good
just
care of them, they would last you forever.
so they requires more care, like
Right.
even daily, right? When you pick it up, you have to hone it, like that,
Right, but
right?
that shouldn't be a big deal to people. A knife is your tool. It's like one it's probably the most important tool in the kitchen next to a frying pan. So you need to take care of all your knives, and carbon steel especially, you want to take care. So carbon steel pans are great. They also conduct heat much quicker heat than cast
They keep
iron,
they
but
keep
it's
the
even
heat
heat.
stable,
Yeah, very stable
very
heat.
stable. So let's say you cook in an aluminum pot like James was saying earlier. So what's happening in an aluminum pot is basically if just like carbon, by the way, kind of the same idea here.
Hmm.
Where it hits, the flame heats, that's your temperature. This is your hot spot.
Hmm.
So on aluminum pot, if you don't move the food, those hot spots are where the flame is touching. In a as bigger, the thicker the pan is, the more distributed the temperatures.
Right,
That's
right.
what's happening.
And
So you
that's
need
why
less
today
power, right?
That's why today, if you buy a stainless steel pan, and most aluminum pans for that matter, I don't like aluminum personally,
No,
uh,
no.
but if you buy a stainless steel pan today, of any level of quality, just about, it's
Right.
got something on the bottom. It's got
I'm
a
going to show
piece
you.
sandwiched on the bottom, typically made
Yeah.
from aluminum or copper, that evens out the heat, because stainless steel is very spotty in how it heats. It's very
That's
erratic.
super heavy. This is super heavy, right?
Yeah,
So there's a whole stainless here, and then there's an extra layer, which is a
right,
very thick bottom. That with your radiation, it will give you a lot of temperature. So those are stable. You need less temperature as you cook. You need to get that going,
right.
and then less temperature you need. Cool, huh?
And if you took that same pan and didn't have that plate sandwiched on the
Right.
bottom, it would be very difficult to cook in.
I think I
Food
have
would really
some.
stick. It would be too
They
hot.
no,
Even on a
they're
lower
fine.
flame, it's going to be very hot.
They're fine. They're not as fast, but I have a couple. They're not as fast, but they're pretty good.
I mean, at that
Um,
point, I'd rather use carbon steel.
yeah, yeah,
Now,
exactly.
then another good choice is copper, of course, which has been used for a long time. Copper again is a pressed pan, so the copper is in sheets, and then it goes into a die that presses out the shapes. Um, Copper's really great to cook with. Some people
Can't
don't
find that
like it
stuff.
because it's also heavy. A good copper pot is heavy. It's requires more maintenance. If you want it to look all shiny and new, you've got to polish it every once in a while, because it will
So I was going
tarnish,
to
it
show
will
you
get
some.
dark.
Uh,
There you go.
so James, there's some that you can't cook with that, right? The old one you cannot cook with it because
Well,
it,
you can't you don't want to cook in a copper pan that has no lining, because it's gonna react to so many different foods. It's just not really good for you. So in the old days, they coated it with tin. They would
right,
put liquid tin in the pan, they'd swirl it around and let it harden, and it's fine. The problem with tin is it does wear out,
yeah.
especially if you use metal utensils. If you get a little carried away, you can really wear it out, and if you cook on too high a heat, it'll melt.
But
But
this one is nice, right?
today they've figured out how to line it with stainless steel in a way that makes really great pans. That's stainless steel with a copper
Okay.
outside. That's a Mauviel pan. I can tell by the handle. That's made by Mauviel. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's not their thickest pan, but it's nice. And
Look, there's a brand here.
oh, you know what that says? It's
No.
oh, Lacoste.
Lacoste. Lacoste. Yeah, Lacoste.
Now, that might be the manufacturer. I think because Mauviel, when they make pans, they'll stamp it. Whoever's name is importing it, they'll stamp your name on it. So all the Mauviel copper we sold at Dean and DeLuca
Oh, those are no, no. Those are
had
from
Dean and
France.
DeLuca stamped on the side.
Those are from France. I
Yeah,
bought them. Okay.
yeah,
They're not
no.
exported here.
Well, that
No,
might be
no,
a different brand then, but
no, no. This is from
similar
France. Yeah.
handle.
Yeah, I bought a whole because see the thing is in France you can find all this stuff pretty easy. There's tons. Nobody uses them anymore.
You can get them at
So
flea market. My wife bought a
yeah,
bunch at
right,
flea
right,
market.
right.
I don't really like the ones she bought. They're very thin. I'm not crazy about them, but
A
they're
little
okay.
thin, but
But that's a nice little pan. Um, So copper's great. I always used to use tin lined copper, but it's problematic. And now we have several copper
right. I have
pans
this
that are
old.
lined in
I have this.
stainless steel. That's an old
Those
one.
are. This is really old. This is. I don't know what that is, but this is super old.
Yeah. Now see how it has a brass handle?
Yep.
The the cast iron handles are better because they don't conduct the heat off the
Mm.
copper as well. The brass
Yeah.
handles get super hot. Which is not a big deal. You're going to use a pot holder anyway. That's a double boiler, a bain marie.
Memory.
Those are really
Cool, huh?
nice. Those are really nice. That's great for like cooking chocolate or
Yeah. That's a
a
chocolate fondue.
fondue. You could do a fondue in there. Very nice.
I
Um,
have tons of those things.
So those are the big four in my mind. There's cast iron, there's stainless steel, there's carbon steel, and copper. Now there's also, like we said, there's aluminum pans. I'm not crazy about aluminum. I don't think
No,
ingesting all that in
yeah,
aluminum
no,
is a good
I'm not.
thing. Um, there used to even be a rumor that if you used aluminum pans, it contributed to Alzheimer's disease, but I've
It's
forgotten all
possible.
about that.
It's possible. It's possible. But I mean, those are old one I got from.
Yeah,
Those are old cake mold. Look at this.
yeah.
The
And
old copper.
there's also different kinds of aluminum. There's aluminum that's been that's been how do you call it? They put it into a electrochemical bath and it changes the nature of the aluminum. It makes it harder.
Hard
Calphalon
anodized.
was a big
Hard
brand.
hard anodized aluminum.
Right. Yeah.
Hard anodized aluminum. So what they do is they plunge them in a bath of acid,
Right.
and that creates that coating.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
It is
It's
tough.
it's almost indestructible. It's like stronger than sapphire, I think.
I'd still rather use my cast iron, my copper,
Yeah.
my stainless, my
Oh
carbon
yeah.
steel. I have all four of those
Yeah.
materials in the kitchen,
Absolutely.
and I like them all, and I use them for different things. So
Yep. Yeah.
anyway, um, it's the most important thing is to buy good quality, and that doesn't mean you have to buy the most expensive pan. But if you're buying a copper pan, for instance, it should have some heft to it. Um,
Right.
Cast iron is heavy.
I know.
Carbon steel is not as heavy because it doesn't have to be. So
No.
that's a good choice for some people if they want kind of like the iron, the properties of the iron, but they can't handle the heft. Uh, Stainless
What's the
steel is
heft?
generally lighter weight, but it still should
It's
have a
gent.
heavy bottom.
What's the heft? What does that mean?
Heft weight, so it's got some thickness
Oh,
to it,
okay.
and um,
Hmm.
you don't want a super thin pan because it's just harder to cook in. You can cook in them. I've certainly cooked in really thin walled pans, but you have to really be on top of it because food can stick really easily, and the heat is not distributed
Right.
as evenly, especially in stainless steel. So there you go. Um, those are all good choices for cookware. I personally stick to those four. I don't have any aluminum cookware. I do have. I take it back. I have a beautiful non-stick skillet that I use mostly for eggs, for omelets, that sort of thing, because it doesn't stick, because you can use a low heat. Like you. I like to cook eggs on a lower heat,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which is something I had to learn to do. When I was young, I thought that you needed to really blast the heat, and I found out that's not such a great idea. So I have the
Exactly.
nonstick pan, but I don't use it for much. I use it
Right.
for
Right.
mainly for eggs, and sometimes I use it just to reheat something. I can toss it in really
No,
quick, and
those things are great for cornbread.
oh yeah,
Man, they make the best cornbread because the cornbread needs a lot of heat, like really to make it crispy. Otherwise, you're not getting that. So cast iron are fantastic for cornbread.
yeah, that's what we use. We're gonna make a cornbread to do. We usually make cornbread and then we make a stuffing with it. Crumble it
Right.
up and add
Yeah.
sausage and sage and
Yeah.
raisins and mushrooms and
Pears. You could put pears. That's the traditional.
pears.
Yeah.
I've never used pears in my dressing. I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
But I always use cornbread. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Cornbread is
Um,
great. So cast iron works really well for that.
so
Good, huh?
we also decided that we were going to talk a little bit today about because we're going into party season,
Yes.
and a lot of people
Money.
have parties around the holidays, for Christmas, certainly for New
Let's make a
Year's.
little bit of money planning.
And people throw parties without thinking of them too much, and they get in trouble, and they end up being really stressed out at the last minute because they've first of all they've forgotten a lot of stuff. um, they're you don't want to spend your party in the kitchen cooking unless you like to do that, but you want to be able to enjoy your own
Yeah,
party. So
exactly. You want to enjoy your party as, especially when the people arrive, right?
right.
When they arrive, you're done.
Listen, look at Kenny. Pears and stuffing. What have I wandered into? This is the
Yeah,
twilight zone of food, Kenny.
no, that is the French stuffing, man. That's what we do is good. That's what my
Oh, that
mom does. Pear, walnut. Yeah, it's really good.
yeah, I'll bet. Pears and
Jenny has
walnut,
some.
really good combination. So let's talk about party planning. What's the first thing you do when you think about having a party?
Right.
You make a
So
list.
first of all, you want to make sure that your friends are still talking to you,
Is that
and you
really
have
mandatory?
and you have friends. Uh, so what I do is you need to think about it. You need to write down your menu just to see if you can make it, because so I can make anything, right? Because I'm a professional, so it's not an issue, right? But maybe sometimes get people get too they want to do too much, and then they end up like being completely freaked out. So do a list of the menu and try to see how long that would take per item, like how long it would take. Is it possible, right? Now, the only thing I do also, the other thing is I do a list, prep list. I do a shop list as well, and then I do a. So the prep list is very important with dessert. Pumpkin cheesecake with strawberry ISO. Yeah, you
You're
only
right.
made it
That is a
once.
weird dessert invention.
Yeah, no, he's right. He only made it once.
You only made it once and don't make it twice.
So you make a list, a prep list. So when you have your menu, you break it down. Let's say I want to do a pork tenderloin with Brussels sprouts, right? Brussels sprouts. So Brussels sprouts, how long does it take? Where does it go? I make a list. And then the thing that goes really long, like the potatoes, they move up the list. Then I make a new list. So I start a list, a draft, and then I realize that some stuff needs to go on the top. On the top means being first to be made. So if I have a potato gratin, that's 2 hours right there, right?
Right.
Slicing, that's about at least 2 hours. So you need to start. This is the first thing you do. Any potato, any starch, anything that needs to go. Anything on the oven needs to go also pretty quick. So if you have a dessert or something like, you need to make it like pretty early. So by the time of the day is going, even you're not going to do everything, but the thing you're going to have left over to do is going to be the easiest stuff. So you
Right.
can do it on the flash. Do you see what I mean? Do the hard part first. So you stress less and less and less, and drink lots of booze.
Yeah. And think about making desserts in advance and other things in advance. There are foods that you can uh, there are foods that you can make that can be made the day ahead
Yeah,
and either
right.
reheated or served at room temperature.
Yeah,
That's great because it takes a lot off your plate on the day of the
I know.
party. I mean, a lot of people go through this at holidays like Thanksgiving. The leading up to the moment that people arrive, they're just in a frenzy because they're trying to do too much
Right.
all at once.
And organize your shopping very well per area of the supermarket. Produce, meat, dairy, vegetables, whatever. And then your staples, your sauces, your tomato, everything. The staples can be bought in advance. So what I would do with the staples, James, to your point, I would do that actually a few days earlier. I
Yeah.
would get rid of all the stuff like oil, the salt, the special stuff you need, the beans, whatever you need. Get
Anything that
everything.
doesn't have to be bought fresh, we buy
Yeah. Yeah.
days or weeks ahead of
Right.
time.
Exactly. Right. You can either you order online, whatever you do, and then make your prep list. The prep list is going to be your savior because as you cross, you're done. Like,
Hmm.
and it feels really good to be done, be done, be done, be done, be done, right?
And
And
do a
then all you
mise
have to
en
do is
place.
reheat.
Do a mise en place, and you can do things like if you need some chopped walnuts, well, you could do that anytime. Do those, put them in a bowl, cover them, boom, it's done. It's there waiting for you. Um,
And let's
Cutting up
say if I,
carrots for a stew or
oh yeah,
something. Do those
oh my
ahead
God,
of time.
oh yeah,
They're not going to
because
go
they won't,
bad.
if you
Uh,
want to do like something like, for example, if you're making a cheese plate, that can be done way in advance because
yeah.
you go in the fridge. Now make sure the cheese come out of the fridge at least an hour before the people arrive because otherwise there's no flavor at all. Remember, that was the biggest problem at Cesar. He was trying to figure out how to serve the cheese the best way possible,
Right.
but we can't leave it in the kitchen because of health code. Remember, health
Right.
department gave us so much shit for that. and we're
Now
like,
what we could have had would have been a separate refrigerator that was set at a higher temp for cheese, and you could have kept it at a bit. Right. But we didn't have the room for that. I mean, that's
yeah.
just, that's a
I
luxury
know.
we
No, I
didn't
remember. I
have.
remember. So what we did at Cesar for a while, we pre-sliced the cheese, and then we put it on a plate, remember, in the fridge. And when there was an order, we'll put it out immediately, let it sit for a few minutes,
Right.
and
It
then
still was
send it.
too cold, but
I know, and it's difficult, and that's because in
you
France,
can put together a cheese plate at home and then
I know,
just
right?
put a piece of wrap around it, stick it in the fridge, and
Oh yeah,
then when you're
this is the best
ready, take it out. If you got guests arriving at 4, take it out at 3 o'clock, put it out, and by four
right?
o'clock it's ready to go, and you haven't had to do a thing.
Because when you
Um,
go in a restaurant in France and you order the plateau de fruits de mer, the plateau, the cheese, the plateau is really the tray. So they bring the whole thing. It's usually on a tray or on a tray, but it's
right.
all warm and it doesn't go in the fridge. It's only here that we put everything in the
Because they
fridge.
don't have
The
those
cheese,
because they've been doing it so long that the health department knows that these cheeses shouldn't be in a refrigerator. Um,
things are changing everywhere, man. The health
I know.
department is all stupid. It's like it's good for a lot of things. I'm not saying, guys. Let me make sure you understand that they make sure the kitchens are clean and you eat safely. Because I tell you, I've been in some kitchen and restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to
Yeah.
eat here for sure. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, I'll tell a really quick story. I was doing some consulting work for a really cool little specialty shop in Princeton, New Jersey, and a friend of mine and I were going out there a couple times a week to deal stuff. And I was out there once, and Steve had put they had a deli case, and on top of the case they had all these beautiful hams. They had prosciutto di Parma, they
Yeah,
had
right,
jamon
right, right, right.
serrano, they had whatever was available at that time. They had several of them out, and they used to slice them to order. If somebody wanted prosciutto, they would take it and they would put it on the slicer and they would slice it. And I was there when the health department officer came in, and she
Wow.
said she just stuck her little thermometer in each hand. She goes, "Oh, these have to go. These this is
Oh,
unacceptable."
oh
And
my
so the owner started to freak out and started to argue with her. And my friend Steve, he just ran over and he goes, "No, no, 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 no." He goes, "Fine, they're gone." And he took a clean trash bag and he just threw all the hams in this clean trash bag, tied it up, and said, "Boom, we're done." She goes, "Okay, great." And she ticked that off on her list. The minute she was out the door, Steve was pulling those hams out of the bag and putting them back up on that because there was
my God,
nothing
no.
wrong with them. And these are cured products that can sit out for a very long time.
Well, I tell you how long. Thousands of years,
Yeah, yeah. I don't
right?
think
I
these
mean,
hams were that old,
but that's what they were doing for like all this time. How do you think they
right?
were?
Right.
Isn't it? Didn't
What is he
uh,
talking about? That are hung on the
hey,
oven handles
I
that hit
mean,
the ground hundreds of times per night
so
while
that
people
no
are
no no, you
walking.
can't do that. You
Well, you
can't
don't
do
do
that.
that.
You can't do that. Kenny, did you work at the FDA or health department? Kenny worked in that thing, right? In that field. That I
Well, I hope he
remember.
didn't work in a restaurant if he was handling his rags that way. Yeah, if a towel, like even being behind the bar, once a towel gets dropped and it's on the floor, it's done. It's retired, and you shouldn't do that, but it happens. Well, people do a lot
Well,
of stuff that they're not supposed to do. I've seen people
James,
drop meat on the floor and pick it up and throw it in the
I
pan.
know. So I don't know if you remember, but at Cesar, I forbid people to carry that in the pocket. The
Oh, really?
bartenders, they used to do that, right?
Yeah.
I say you can't do that. The towel needs to be somewhere. So now in my private kitchen, I'm gonna put it here, right? I have a dry towel and I have my wet towel. Okay. But
Uh-huh.
otherwise, both towels. And no, I'm sorry, I didn't mind the back. I mind this. I hate to see that in a bar. And I told them you cannot walk around with a dirty towel on your shoulder
Yeah.
and then go like this,
Yeah.
right? It's just so I said towels on the side or whatever, right? You don't carry the towel. The towel you carry is for if you spill something, you need to quick. So you have to remember all this, right? It's kind of like
Yeah. And if uh I always like to have bar towels placed at strategic spots so I could use them for different things. This one was to wipe down the bar, and that's mainly what I use them for at the bar. So I'm not touching food with it.
The phone is a
Yeah,
whole.
handling food. Well, I very early when I was very young, was a waiter at this Italian restaurant at where I lived, and I remember this girl that I worked with, and she had this beautiful mane of hair, and
Oh
she
my
was
God.
always doing this. She would go to head to a table, and she
Oh,
would
I
run her
know.
fingers through her hair, and
Oh,
I just like, oh my God. And the manager used to just like go, oh, don't do that. You're going to handle a plate now,
mm,
and you've just run. I'm sure your hair is clean. It looked clean,
yeah.
but it's never clean.
Yeah.
So yeah, people do some terrible things.
Inexperience. When you're inexperienced, you don't know, and that's why a good manager will train you. Make sure you don't do that again. And it's not a. There's no reason to get upset if you don't know. You don't know. But
There's a
it's
there's a show on the Food Network. It's a competition. It's called Chopped, and my wife watches it a lot. And I happened to be
yeah.
seeing it one day, and this guy, in the heat of the competition, he drops a piece of meat on the floor, and he just reaches down and
Oh,
grabs it, and he puts it back in the pan and keeps on going. And all three of or four or whatever of the judges, and most of these people are either currently or were professional
right. Right.
chefs, restaurateurs. They all just freaked out, and they were like, "Oh my God, did he just do that? Did he just do that?"
Oh my
And
God.
they really let him have it in the judging. They said, "You cannot, you know,
Of
a piece of
course,
food falls on the floor, you forget about it.
you can rinse it.
Maybe you clean it up, maybe you throw it in the
Yeah.
garbage, but you certainly don't pick it up and put it back in the
No.
pan."
So in a restaurant, you cannot do anything with that steak. It's either your steak or you throw it away. You cannot because
Yeah, if you want to
it's
eat it,
it's
fine, but you don't
but
cook it and
you have
serve
to
it
put
to
it
a
away from
guest.
the service because if someone sees you, if one of your chef or one of your employees sees that, he's gonna do it again. So basically that steak. You see what I mean? It's a concept, right?
Right.
At home, if the
Uh,
steak falls, you can either wipe it or guess what? Salt. That's what salt does.
yeah,
And then it's going to go on a very high temperature. So don't worry about it too much. Yes, he's right. But you can't do that in public ever. If anybody sees you, you're going to be in trouble. Even if one of your employees sees that, they they might not say anything to you, but now they know it's okay to do it, and
right,
it's not okay.
right. And today, with so many restaurants having big open kitchens that you can see what's going on, it becomes even more important. Cook that
Yeah.
was oblivious that it was a problem. And yeah, like you said, if I drop a piece of meat at home, I pick it up and I'm not going to throw it away
No,
because I'm the one who's going to eat it, and I know that the
exactly.
floor is relatively clean. It's not going to kill me.
Plus, you're gonna cook the steak.
You're going to cook it,
You're not gonna do that with tartar. Okay, we gotta agree on that, right?
right?
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, raw food is different than cooked food. But I mean, the best example, James, is when you go to Mexico and you go to the market, the chicken is on the floor. So
Because they're still walking, or
because they're super fresh and they're full of antibiotics and they don't risk anything.
yeah, yeah.
Those meats are, it's a good meat. The chicken is from a farm. It was just killed. It's super like it can protect itself. But if you buy that really terrible chicken that's so sick and so diseased already, even if you cook it, you're gonna get sick.
Well, also in the markets in Europe, you go to the big public markets, the poultry is
Yeah,
just
no, that's
stacked on a
true.
table. It's not in a refrigerator
No.
because it's super fresh. It was killed that morning. Whoever buys it's probably going to go home and cook it. So
And you,
yeah,
you take care of it and you salt it first.
you
The
salt it.
salt does, you guys remember that salt does that. That's why you salt the outside of the meat. It does a couple of things. It flavors, it also kills bacteria. Salt is your ultimate tool. It's been used like that. We salt meat to cure it. So salt is that's it. That's what it is. So you need to relax with that. As long as you have salt around and you're gonna cook that, you're fine. You just cannot do it in a public place. That's all. Well, there's customers basically.
Whenever I've known someone that moved into a new place and I went to visit them, I always bring them salt. It's like an old custom. I've heard in Jewish culture, it's a tradition to bring salt and
Wow,
apples or something, or salt and
that's
bread.
great.
So, but I often will bring them a thing of salt and
Ah,
a little bit of
nitrate. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean nitrates. You make nitrates. Your body makes nitrates. It's from the plants.
yeah,
Nitrates. They go into your body. You make nitrates in your mouth, and then it may transform into nitrate oxide, which is super healthy. Anyway.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, salt's very important, and again, it's the difference between cooking at home and cooking in a restaurant. You're cooking for
Yeah,
people that are not your family, they're not even
true.
necessarily your friends. They're
And you never
paying
know.
you,
Yeah, and
and
yeah.
you can't
And
you
there's
and
laws.
it's even if what you do is not actually going to hurt anyone, it's not going to kill them, it looks so bad that people are going to assume that you take other shortcuts, that they're just not going to trust you. And you want, when you're cooking for someone
Exactly.
and you're
Yeah.
feeding these people, these
Uh,
strangers, you want them to trust you. That's the ultimate thing. You want this trust between the dining room and the kitchen. And as soon as they see you picking up crap off the floor and throwing it in a pan, you've lost that trust. And they're going to tell 10 people. There's an old sort of saying in the restaurant business: if somebody has a good time and a good experience, they might tell somebody. But if they have a bad experience, they're going to tell 10 people. They're going to tell
right.
everybody they meet. So it's going to
No, no,
spread.
it's
And
true.
then, of course, nowadays you've got Yelp and Twitter. So it's going
Plus,
to,
it's not, James, the truth is there is regulation that you have to follow, and that's it. I mean, if you want to
yeah,
have a food business, you need to follow the regulation. That's it. There's no discussion. You don't interpret. That's why I've never cared about the health department coming to my restaurant because, first of all, they've always been nice to me. Always, always. I've never had, I mean, you have some stuff I've done, the temperature was not right. Or he's going to say, well, the sink is not right temperature. Please fix that. So we have little notes. And then you have a week to fix it or whatever, right? But it's minor.
but the
So
basics
all
are, you've covered the basics. Your kitchen is
No,
clean.
when they come to my kitchen, they're like, "Oh my God, that kitchen is so clean, so beautiful." They're already excited because that's what they do for a living, right? They're a health inspector, and they come to
Hmm.
my kitchen, and every time they're like, "Wow!" So they have to go to the fridge because they want to, that's fine. Check the temperature of food, make sure nothing is getting too warm. Get the water, the sink, the thing has to be everything on the six inches, no food on the floor. Basic stuff, really. There's nothing
Right.
crazy. Uh,
It's very important when you build a kitchen, when you build a new kitchen today, you have to be very, very careful, because if you've had a kitchen that's been around for 70 years, there's certain things they won't force you to do because it's very expensive to change. But if you're building a new kitchen, everything has to be exactly to code. And why wouldn't you want it built to code? I mean,
yeah, it's
those
fine.
codes are there for a reason. In many ways, it makes a kitchen more efficient. It
They
it
kind of
certainly
protect
makes
you.
it cleaner.
They kind of protect you.
And if you really build your kitchen to code, it's easier to clean too. So much weird issue with the Oakland Health Department. The guy wouldn't look any of the women in the room in the eye.
Right?
Where did he look them? Um, well, listen, health departments, like any other department, there are strange people and there are good people, and whatever. But the point is, you follow the rules when you're dealing with food. When you're cooking
Ah,
food for people, you
mm,
have to follow the rules. If you're
yeah,
making wooden furniture, you got a lot more leeway. Just has to be
true. You have to
solid,
be.
but no one
Food, you
cares how
can you,
clean your workshop is.
you can poison people.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
changed
that's
his own
crazy.
decision.
See that? I'm sorry. I'm sorry that some people have to go through some shit. I know. I heard some crazy stories. It's true. It exists. I personally have never had any bad experience with health code, either in France. And in France, the same. My kitchen was super spotless. So in France, it was even worse. People are really hard in France. People, you would think, people are really tough in France. Even though the kitchen are not as clean as here in general, but men, they're tough, huh? They won't let go anything. You have to. They'll get on your case.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never had problems really with health
Yeah,
inspectors. They've
yeah.
always
Me
been
neither.
nice. They've
Never.
always been sane. They just want you to follow
Right.
the rules. They just want
Right.
and they want you to succeed. They're not looking to shut you down. They want you to stay open.
But
It
like
doesn't do
he said,
anyone any
boss,
good.
some people are really like you said, like it's some, there's some crazy inspector for sure, right? And
Sure.
maybe,
Some people like to throw their weight around. They like to wield power over you, but I think those are exceptions, not the rule. I think most inspectors are decent people that just want to do their jobs and want you to do your job.
and plus a
So,
lot of time it's going to be the same every year, so you better be right. You know what I mean? I have the same inspector here, the same person. She's super nice. Every time she comes, she looked at the kitchen. She's like, "Oh my God, your kitchen is because of course we don't work much now in Auckland. We only do the drink, so there's not much going on, right? So of course the kitchen is super clean also, but it was
right.
clean after. It was clean before. I always keep
I've
the kitchen. We have so many chefs here,
I've been
and
there
that's
many
how.
times and it's always spotless. It also helps that today most kitchens are, you know, there's a lot of stainless steel. The counters are stainless steel, the stoves, everything is stainless steel, so it's much easier to keep clean.
Wow,
Uh,
funny, huh?
the
So that's
liquor folks are hard.
interesting. Yeah,
Huh.
well, you must have some insight. Hey, Kenny, you must know some people. I know I heard some crazy story about people that have really big issues with the health department. But one of the person who told me that his kitchen was really shitty. I don't know about
Yeah.
the rest of them, but his kitchen was super dirty. And I say, I would have you closed down like, I'm surprised you're still open. Like, seriously. Yeah, but it's like it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. It's no, it is a big deal. This is like you're serving food. This is like anyway.
I just wouldn't want my workspace to look like that. I take more
No,
pride in my work, and I mean,
Jim,
I'm not a
I
I'm not a chef, but
sorry guys, I need to go early because I do have a class at 2, literally at 2. So I'm gonna get my stuff ready. We're gonna end up early, chef, in a
okay.
couple of minutes, like at 55. Let's close this.
Sehr gut.
And they're
We
good.
got a little off topic there. We were talking about parties, and we'll talk more about parties.
Maybe we'll do well, if
Let's
we
throw
say
a
we do
party.
something, we need to do.
Next week we're going to have a party,
There you go.
and you're all invited. All
And you
7
can
billion of you.
watch it.
I paid good
I
money.
dare you.
Hey, our show is free and it's worth every penny. Uh yeah. The other thing,
So
I was just going to say one more thing about prep too, when you're prepping a party, and that is, and this goes for any time you're cooking, is I like to clean up as I go. I like to keep this sort of, it goes in what we were talking about. I like to keep my workspace clean
yeah,
and
yeah,
clear. It if your workspace is organized and clean, it helps you think, it helps you see what you're doing. I think your mind is much clearer when that if
yeah, it's
everything's
true.
cluttered, it's just it's just hard to do things right. Oh, that
Uh,
guy that you paid for this? Oh,
you
that's
haven't
my
seen.
cousin Harry. Yeah, he goes around and collects money. We've never seen any of it, so oh
We don't
well.
put our name on the billing.
Yeah, yeah. Read the fine print, Kenny. His said table for 6.9 billion.
And rising. You
Yeah.
guys, I gotta go, James. I really have
Thanks
to
for
go.
joining us, everyone. We're
Thank
gonna
you,
head
everyone.
out.
Kenny, good to see you, my friend. We'll see you
We'll
next
see you
week.
next week. We may
I
take a
have.
break at Christmas. We haven't decided yet.
Oh
I don't
yeah, that's
know.
right.
But we'll
Okay,
be back next week for sure. And we're going to start getting guests back in January.
January, probably the
So,
second week. Cool.
so adios. And we'll see you next week.
Why? What's happening next week?
Hasta semana próxima. Next week.